Some younger people have been pretty vocal. I'm really proud of the youth that's coming out. And you've probably seen this clip, Max, but for those who have not, there have been a group of young people that have been going to town halls that AOC holds, Jamal Bowman, Ilhan Omar, et cetera, et cetera. And they've been questioning them about this. So I want to play this clip really quick because this actually leads into there's a censorship issue that came after this, which leads into an article that you wrote last year. So for those who have not seen this, this was AOC's a town hall event, and there are two protesters. I know one of them is Jose. Jose's been going to a lot of these events, and they're calling out this issue here with Russia and Ukraine.
Congresswoman, none of this matters unless there's a nuclear war, which you voted to send arms and weapons to Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard, she's left the Democratic Party because there are funny war hawks, okay? You originally voted, you ran as an outsider, yet you've been voting to start this war in Ukraine. You're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens? You're playing with our lives.
There will be no neighbors if there's a nuclear bomb. You voted to mobilize and send money to Ukrainian Nazis. You're a coward. You're a progressive socialist. Where are you against the war mobilization? He's telling the right truth. You have done nothing. Tulsi Gabbard has shown guts where you've shown cowardice. I believed in you, and you became the very thing you sought to fight against. That's what you've become. You are the establishment, and you are the reason why everybody will end up in a nuclear war unless you choose to stand up right now and denounce the Democratic Party. Will you do that? Yes or no? Okay, simple. Are you going to stop nuclear war? Yes or no? There is no line, because this is bullshit. None of this matters if we're all dead. None of it. You know that. Then let's take it up right now, because this is the only thing that matters. This is the only thing that matters right now. We could be in a nuclear war at any minute, and you continue to fund it. That's what's going on. Why not right now? You're the liar here. Nobody has held you accountable. That's what's happening. And it is time for you to stand up and realize that what you've been saying has been lies. Let your conscience come through for once.
Okay. So there have been many of those situations that have been happening over the past couple of months. What happened after this confrontation, Jose, this video went viral on Twitter, and Jose was temporarily suspended on Twitter. And the belief is that AOC, because she did respond to this clip, AOC sent her troll farms or whatever after Jose to report the video. And that's why he was temporarily suspended at that time. Now, he did get his account reinstated, but this points to another issue which you wrote about. So I talked about that clip before, and then a subscriber sent me this article and they said, Max Blumenthal called this out last year. And it says here, anti-war activists visited by police after posting embarrassing AOC video. Yep. Max, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a staffer at Mint Press named Ryan, Ryan went, or he was at Soapbox at the time, and he published a pretty embarrassing interview where AOC basically could not, she basically couldn't answer a clear question on whether settlements were wrong. I actually don't remember the interview. There have been so many embarrassing interviews with her that I can't remember, but he was visited by Capitol Police for threatening a member of Congress. And they told him that this is because of your tweet. And basically, you know, it's consistent with what AOC's been saying in in her interviews where she constantly talks about death threats and says it's affecting the way she votes and the way she acts, and that she's afraid for her life constantly. And her January 6th performance it's completely consistent with that, where she conflates criticism with existential threats to her life and appears to be sicking the police on people. There really was no explanation. This was the California Highway Patrol that visited him, and they got called by the Capitol Police. So who would call the Capitol Police and make this happen? I mean, who would have done that? And then, they went to Ryan Grimm. AOC has a direct line to Ryan Grimm, and they denied that they had any role in it. But, I really, really wonder who was behind this. And just having tried to interact with AOC on the street, she has this chief of staff who's 6'8". He's this Neanderthal. He's huge. And he will body block anyone who tries to get near her. I mean, I guess I understand that. And I'm not saying she doesn't get death threats, but I get death threats all the time at the Gray Zone. I mean, and I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. I mean, direct threats, I am going to find you and kill you. And I just, what am I supposed to do? It just comes with the territory. So I'm not going to do some performance all the time. But she obviously enjoys playing the victim. And yeah, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. Yeah, there's some psychos out there, but if you actually really want to change this society, you are going to come under threat, because this is not a society that's hospitable to people that actually want to take on the war state, want to take on the police and so on, mass militarized policing or mass incarceration or Wall Street. It's based on exploitation. So what does she think she's getting herself into? The problem here is that the people doing these interruptions don't come from the part of the anti-war movement that is considered legitimate and progressive and left-wing. And that's because that part of the anti-war movement doesn't really even exist anymore. It just sits on its ass and cancels people online and creates all kinds of internal dramas with any institution they're involved in. And they've discredited themselves by allowing AOC to be part of the Democratic Socialists of America, along with Chris Hayes and all of these other clowns, anyone who wants to pay $20. If that part of the anti-war movement, I mean, the DSA has issued a good statement on Ukraine. If they actually wanted to wield some power, they would strip her of her membership and publicly humiliate her for voting for the $40 billion. But instead, they published these I wouldn't even call them softball interviews. They're just these fawning profiles of AOC and the DSA Members Magazine, and just continue to treat her as though she's an actual socialist wouldn't give $40 billion to a coup regime that's infested with Nazis in the most corrupt country in Europe, taking it away from the taxpayer. They would give $40 billion to create new housing down here in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C., where the only housing we get are these fake luxury condos for contractors. And AOC's never been down here. She lives actually right across the river in Navy Yard above a Whole Foods. And you never see her out in the community, although she says sometimes she walks to work. But I remember once she mocked DC and said, there's no good bodegas here where I can get a sandwich. She doesn't care about our culture in this city. And no one really knows who she is or really respects her. She's basically this celebrity figure who is going to go along with the liberal mainstream in order to continue basking in the absurd, just to bask in the spotlight. And who's behind the spotlight? It's the same people who are behind the proxy war. I mean, did you read the Wesley Lowery profile of her?
I've known a lot about her for a while. Yep.
But yeah, back to those protesters, they're affiliated with the Lyndon LaRouche movement. And I never supported that movement. And there's an aspect of it that's objectionable to me, but I don't care. I don't care, because they're actually doing something real and important. And they're not, of course, not the only ones now, and they're starting something. It's the only resistance I've seen. And they're targeting the right, they're going after the right targets. I mean, it would be, yeah, I mean, go heckle Obama or Nancy Pelosi, but we expect them to support these kinds of wars. But going after AOC is so important, because that's a betrayal. That's,
Yep.
treason to the people that she claims to represent. And she needs to be confronted there. And I really commend Jose and everyone else. And I just don't care what organization they're from. It's so pathetic when I see like people who try to be anti-war influencers or anti-imperialists on Twitter attack the LaRouche movement after they go and do something really productive, when these same people are just like these dweeby shut-ins who you will never see doing anything in public. And I'm waiting for the anti-war rally. Like, when is it going to happen? Like, $4.5 billion were just handed over to Ukraine yesterday by the Biden administration. Like, how much more money do we keep giving this criminal regime?
Well said. And to show people what Max is referring to, I don't know if you've seen this before, Max, but we went over all the ideology and political issues for the Justice Democrats. Now, this is their page, and one of the principles that they had, this one was a big one that jumped out to me: ending arms sales to countries that it says violate human rights, and they list Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Egypt. That's supposed to be one of the principles for Justice Democrats. They're not doing most of the stuff, like they have not done, Max. The other one too, there was another one here about, here it is: ending the practice of unilaterally waging war except as a last resort to defend U.S. territory. They're not doing any of this stuff, Max. Like, I don't know. Have you seen this before?
No, I haven't. Once I got invited to some event that Justice Democrats did, because I got invited through Mike Papantonio, who, when my wife was hosting a show at RT America, and Mike Papantonio was her colleague. So I went out to this fundraiser, and Cenk brought up some candidate who was just like a mainstream Democrat that he recruited. And I was just like, what is the difference? Like, all the things she was saying were not like really that different than what I was hearing from the people Pelosi recruits. And it was, I mean, you just looked at the forum she was speaking in. She was trying to appeal for like large donations. So the whole thing just looked like a spinoff of the regular Democrats to me, from what I could anecdotally observe. But looking at that, I mean, pardoning Edward Snowden, prosecuting CIA, all that stuff. I mean, look at what they said about Assange on TYT.
Yep.
And look at what Cenk and Anna Kasparian say about Ukraine. I mean, they are the biggest McCarthyites, and they attack anyone who opposes this proxy war. I don't know how much longer they can keep that up for. But
Yes.
they're not really setting the tone here.
No, and another one they were supposed to do: implementing instant runoff voting nationwide in an effort to make third party and independent candidates more viable. That never happened. The same people who started like Justice Democrats, they're against third parties. They're against any type of third party movement, but this was actually one of the principles of Justice Democrats. So to me, I just see this all as just like, this is just another way to bring younger people into the Democratic Party and to keep them there, because they knew they were losing like the youth vote. So what do? You organize like young, energetic, progressive candidates to come out and say, we're the Justice Democrats and we're going to go in and change the Democratic Party. Obviously, that did not happen, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. So what ends up happening is those progressive candidates end up moving further to the right so that they can keep their seats. And if they don't, they'll be gone. I mean, Ilhan Omar almost lost her primary race.
Yeah. Ilhan Omar is not well liked in her district. I can tell you that. And there's this effort to remove her, which is McCarthyite, by the aptly named Kevin McCarthy. I mean, I don't think we would support it. He's calling her an anti-Semite and stating that, she needs to be basically kicked out of Congress for her anti-Semitism. But Go talk to people in Ilhan Omar's district who are Somali Americans. They're not very supportive of her. Actually, many of them despise her. And we wrote about this at the Gray Zone. Ann Garrison, who's hosts the show at Pacifica, has done an enormous amount of work on the Horn of Africa as well as Rwanda. She's someone I would consider an Africa expert. Wrote about how Somali Americans actually booed Ilhan Omar at a concert of a popular Somali singer. And then she interviewed some of them, and they were upset partly because she played a role in the House Foreign Affairs Committee in actually demonizing the elected president of Somalia, Farmajo, who was moving Somalia to a more independent place, trying to create, for example, more sovereign Somali military. He was actually trying to create a navy and a coast guard. And, this is something the U.S. and NATO do not want. Why? One reason is they've been dumping nuclear waste on Somalia for a long time. Another reason is they just don't want any independence in the Horn of Africa. And Farmajo was building ties with Eritrea, which is under U.S. attack, as you've covered right now, through the TPLF. Eritrea is free, it's not exactly the most democratic place, but they're not debt slaves like many other African countries. And so Ilhan Omar was constantly antagonizing Farmajo, constantly calling him out from her position as the second ranking Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee behind Karen Bass, who's the newly elected LA mayor. I could talk about her in a second. People are pissed off in her district about this because she was participating in an imperial attack on their country. And look what happened the day after Farmajo loses, or a week after. Ilhan Omar's first husband is appointed advisor to the new president, and the new president is a member of her clan. I mean, it's complete corruption.